Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching this show anywhere else but within our private community, be sure to come join us. The name of our community is called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, our private Facebook group. So today I want to invite you and really welcome and introduce you to one of our community members. He goes by the name of Paul Stretton Stevens. Hey, welcome, Paul.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And you're in the UK, right?
That's correct. Yeah, in the south of the UK.
Perfect. Love it. Awesome. So in terms of what you do, tell us about your coaching business. What do you do?
I'm a future mindset coach.
A future mindset coach.
The whole premise of that is yesterday's mindset's got you to where you've got. You need to craft a future mindset to get you to where you want to be.
Love that.
There's a difference here because a lot of mindset coaches ask you to change your mindset. And when I'm working with people, the difference is that mindset of yesterday has served you well until that point. If you want to do something different, you want to become a different person, you want to fulfill your potential, then take the elements that serve you well into the future with you and then craft a new mindset around that and eliminate the things that don't serve you well. That's the whole premise of it.
Yeah, love that. So in terms of how did you come up with your philosophy? Because I've never heard it said that way. How did you come up with that?
Well, I had a back injury a long time ago, and I remember sort of 6 months after the injury, I was in the hospital, and I had paralysis of the left leg. And there was a guy sat in the waiting room at the same time as me, and he'd had the same operation as me. And he was in a really dark place, and he wouldn't engage in conversation. He wouldn't engage in eye contact. Whereas at that point, I was already learning to play the saxophone. I'm learning the computer to a better degree. And I was also going into further education to re-educate myself because I was being medically retired. So it got me thinking about mindset. And how could I be in that place and he can be in another place when we've experienced the same? And it was all about the future. It was all about finding your purpose. And a lot of people find their purpose, and that's great, but they don't take action. And when I'm working with people, we work on purpose. Everything's in the future from day one. They know from the outset, that's what I'm going to be working with them on their future, helping them craft that, find the purpose, and then we look at the steps and the action steps to take in order to create that.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful thing as well, too, because what I've noticed as well too, and even with myself, when I think how I used to think before, it was always like the past. It's almost like you take the past into the future with you, right? So you base the future based on how things worked out in the past and how things used to be, or all the limiting beliefs, all the things that didn't work out, right?
Absolutely.
And most individuals take that into the future. And it's one of those places where if you're not really conscious of it, it's like it runs your life, right? Unless you become conscious of it, that's the only way you can kind of change it, right?
Yeah, and that's why I brought in the term future mindset coach, because it's like you're starting with a clean slate. If you want to bring things from the past that served you well to the future, great. But if you want to change a lot, you need to craft and you need to work at that. But you very often need somebody to work with you and hold you accountable and challenge you and, really get you working so you cut that time down. So if you did it on your own, you can do it, no problem. But if you want to cut the time down and you want to get there sooner rather than later and live that life to its fullest potential, that's the way to go.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I've been doing this show for a couple of weeks now, and I've interviewed so many very interesting people. And one of the things I'm realizing that is everyone has a zone of genius, right? So for myself, I spend time with mindset, I spend time with all these different things, self-educate myself. But as I started connecting with different people, I started realizing like, holy goodness, there's like different levels to this game, right? And that's when I started realizing that it's much better to whenever you try to figure out what you want to do or whatever challenges you have, it's always better to say, how do I find someone else who's gone down this path a little bit deeper than me, and how do I surround myself with them so I could get a download? So I believe that's a key thing with most individuals who they don't really seek out the help. They don't really seek out the knowledge simply because they feel like they understand it, right? Versus not realizing that you think you understand, but you're only scratching the surface. This game is so much deeper. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to class myself as a deep listener, and I class myself now as a super deep listener, and that really serves me well, but it serves my clients well, because half the battle, people, you're right. People do realize I can do this by myself. You know, I can read a few books, I can listen to some YouTube videos, and away they go. But there's nobody there to listen to their language patterns. There's nobody there to listen to their limiting beliefs that are holding them back, and nobody there to challenge them and hold them accountable. And that's when you really make forward movement. Without those elements in place, yeah, read the books, listen to the YouTube. You know, we've all done that. But if you really are serious about moving forward, you need somebody to challenge you, to listen to you, to hold you to account. Simple as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's so true. Because the whole thing is change, right? So transformation, change,
Yeah.
and with change, it's pretty interesting because the whole premise is like we all know we have to change, we have to become better. But when you try to change, there's certain behaviors we can change. But I really believe that there's certain things you just your brain, whatever it is, you will at least if you try to do by yourself, you will fight your brain because there's a saying that says like we're masters of self-deception, right? Meaning that
We can be.
we want to change, we might think we want better, whatever, but based on the subconscious mind and what's going on in here, that change is almost like it'll never happen unless you have someone else that can it's like see you for who you really are and what's really going on, your real behaviors, and say, hey, what about this and what about this, and really challenge you to actually face that thing that we all like. It's kind of like Pandora's box, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for example, if you were my client and you're not, I would just listen to your phrase you just used as there. So it will never happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I would really challenge anybody who I'm working with. Say, well, what do you mean never? I mean,
Yeah.
is there a limiting belief behind them there that's holding them back? Because
Mm-hmm.
they say, oh, that will never happen. So, well, okay, where's your evidence for that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's your basis for that statement? And we really explore it in depth. And sometimes it can take 30 seconds for somebody to realize. Sometimes it can take them 3 sessions. It depends on the individual,
Yeah.
you know. And the other thing is some people come to the table and they are motivated and they are driven and they are passionate and they're ambitious. So the question is then, what do you do with these people who've got all that,
Mm-hmm.
but don't know how to get from A to B?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example of that, if I may. I coached 3 women recently who rode the Atlantic in the Atlantic Challenge, 3,000 miles. One specific one had never rode before in her life. So this was a brand new challenge for her, a new activity and a new challenge. You know, it was 49 days at sea, you know, in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And they came with all those skills, you know, passion, ambition, drive, and determination. So what we worked on was mental preparedness for the event, visualizations, management techniques, conflict management techniques, confidence, an abundance of elimination of fear, and all the techniques to help them during their 49 days. Now, if you can do that with epic adventurers, you can do it with anybody.
Yeah. That's so powerful too. And this mindset thing is just so fascinating. It's one of the topics where I really love because at least from my perspective, it's like every time you think you get it, at least from my perspective, at least you really don't get it because there's always a higher level in a sense. So what got you interested in, well, I know you shared your story as far as how you got in that situation in your own life to where you saw the difference between yourself, how you dealt with your situation and how someone else dealt with theirs. So were you always into mindsets even before that? Did you always have like this type of growth mindset?
Well, I served in the military to start with, and then after the military, I was a physical education officer.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant that I had 8, 9 different sports coaching qualifications: volleyball, rugby, mountaineering, kayaking, basketball, volleyball, you know, quite a few. And when you work as a sports coach, not everybody realizes this. They just think you're working in the discipline. But not everybody turns up to training fully committed and fully motivated. You know, they've got wives, they've got boyfriends, they've got husbands, they've got kids, they've got mortgages. They've got all the problems we've got. So not everybody turns up to work every day completely motivated, do they? So as a coach, you have to help the individuals deal with those issues to get them mentally prepared for work. And if you've got a team, rugby team, for example, you've got 15 individuals. But on top of that, then you've got the mindset of the dynamics within the team. So it's always been there. And, you know, I've got a lot of experience. So, and that's why I do what I do. I've got 25 years of coaching and teaching experience, and predominantly a lot of that has been specifically with mindset.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one thing you said when you example you use the rugby with a team where there's maybe 15 people, and you said there's the mindset of the team. You said the mindset of mindset of the dynamic. You said.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, every team's got a dynamic, and when a coach selects a team, they select the best players for the occasion, for the opponents, the best play, etc., etc. So the team dynamics are not always the same from game to game, because you're putting in different players for different reasons. Now, within that, you have to make sure that the team gels. You haven't got the luxury like you've got in business of the forming, storming, and norming process as much. You know, you've got a squad you work with, and they all know how to work with each other, but the gameplay on the field, preparing them for that. You can have conflicts between just one or two. You can have cliques within the team. You can have people who are, you know, the prima donnas, and they really think that they're the best sportsmen there. But they may be good players, but they need to be toned down a little bit in terms of their arrogance or whatever. So you're always talking about their mindset and helping them temper it or increase it or open it up, depending on what the individual needs, in order that you get the optimum performance from them.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sports endeavor, you know, that occurs more than ever.
Yeah, awesome, love it. So what are you seeing as a key difference between in terms of the mindset wise? Are there any specific, whether it's habits of thinking or habits of things they do, that contributes to a mindset to where someone is able to progress and, as you said, have more of that future based thinking?
Yeah, there's a couple, because some people come for coaching and they want something, they're unfulfilled, they're not satisfied, but they don't actually know what they want. And they haven't really analyzed what's served them and what hasn't served them in the past. And that's the job, is to work with them then to figure that out for them, you know, to work with them so that they can, okay, the little light comes on, and, you know, say, okay, but that particular element of my persona, my personality, my trait or characteristic hasn't served me well. It could be a habit, like you mentioned, you know, and recent research suggests that forming a habit or changing a habit can take on average up to 66 days. So it's not as quick as many people think. Depends on what the habit is, of course, but the average is 66 days these days. So that requires a lot of work and effort from people to change, and a lot of consistency. I mean, people make these New Year's resolutions every year, a new year, and you see them, they go out running, they join the gym, they pay the subscription, and by February, they've given up. You know, a lot of people do that. A few carry on, and that's great. But a vast majority, and research supports this, do give up. They haven't got that level of consistency. And crafting a future mindset, once you realize where you want to be, and you've got your purpose, and you want to start taking action, that's the real first step to forward momentum. And when you gain that momentum, it's up to you. How fast you go, how slow you go, which direction you go. But you need somebody alongside you, I feel, that helps you be accountable for your actions.
Mm-hmm. And with most of the clients you've worked with, as you're on your journey, you find that most of them come in where they know there's something is not working, but they're not sure? Or would you say most of them come in based on, okay, I already kind of know what I want, I just need some help being able to get there? What do you find on your
That's
journey?
that's about a 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, some people just know that they want to go from here to here, or they think they do to start with. Very often it changes when they have some insight, some foresight, and maybe some fresh perspective on what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting on the perspective side of things, because a lot of people have this train of thought. I think my issues are this and this, and I want to address them and work with a coach to do that. Say, okay. And then when we work with that, very often the perspective changes, and it isn't what they originally thought. It's something else that's underlying that may be holding them back, or indeed they realize it's not what they want. It's something else they want. And that's quite interesting from a coach's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all down to the individual and how it manifests in them, really.
Yeah, and that's one thing I learned too, because what we do is we coach we're basically marketing and business coaches for coaches and consultants, and we find that it's the same thing as well to most individuals who do show up and they're like, this is my problem, this is what I want to fix, and then once we really start working on the issue, they realize like that's really not the problem. There's a deeper underlying thing going on, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like a business, isn't it? If a business brings in an external consultant to analyze the business, they're going to pick up different things. They're going to perceive different things. They're going to hear things, see things, feel things that are different, and then report back to the C-suite and say, look, this is what I've found. And it's not too dissimilar to having an individual working with a coach. They come and you come back to them and you work with them and you say, look, what about this? What about that? And you ask these really testing, probing questions. And that's when it comes to the fore, what they really need, that realization.
Yeah.
And very often it's in between sessions and they give you a call and say, oh, I've just thought about it. It's this.
Yeah, love it. Now, what about tools wise? Do you have any tools in your tool bag that you keep as far as to help your clients?
Yeah, it's not a prescriptive approach. It's I've worked in a wide range of methodologies, and it's whatever is needed for the client at that particular moment in time. But one of the things I will always do, that my number one tool is, and I developed this, I think, 1997, and it's been sort of refined as it went on, is what I call the persona graph. And I use that with every client at the beginning of any program, and it looks at their characteristics and traits, and where they think they are on a Likert scale of 1 to 10, 0 to 10. And then at the end of the program, we go through the same persona graph and see where the changes are. And that's a really interesting exercise for both the coach and the client, because the client can see where all the movement has been.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful as well, too, being able to track something, because I know with a lot of whether it's transformation and change, it's very hard. It's like kind of like intangible thing.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to be that way, but it's another thing to like actually physically see, whether it's a chart or something, to see where there's an actual change, right?
Yeah, and this is done in a graphic form. So they can actually, they plot it themselves, and then at the end they plot it themselves, and we compare the two. And that the discussions that emanate from that are astounding.
Love it, love it. So where would someone need to be at to be kind of like in need of your services? Where do they typically at?
Where are they at?
In terms of their life, their business, or just in general, what's going on in their life?
Very often it's at a turning point, or they feel there's a turning point, or they're dissatisfied and there is a turning point about to come. And I work with 3 distinct groups. I work with business groups, I work with sport and adventurers, and I work with people in their normal lifestyles. So on my website, it's divided into the 3, because I've identified over the years that those 3 different elements require 3 different approaches. Very often I'll have somebody who wants to work with their life, but actually does affect their professional life, or vice versa. And it depends on how they want to approach it. But it very often is people where they've just reached this point where they're, to give you an example, somebody who's really in a good role in their employment, they're on a good salary, they seem to have everything. They're like, the house, the 2.2 children, nice car, they go on nice holidays, but they're still unfulfilled. And I tend to work with the difference makers, those people who want to make a difference in the world, either a difference in their company, a difference in their family, in their community, or a difference in the world at large. And it's people who want to make a difference that I really find are interesting to work with.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I've seen it so often as well too, because as we go in our life, our journey, it's like we get into doing things just whether it's out of habit, routine, and next thing you know, we find ourselves doing this, whether it's a job or whatever, and we're just like not fulfilled, right? And now we're like seeking, we're trying to figure out, okay, what's the best approach? And I love that there's people like you who kind of guide someone else, because I know that most individuals, when they do get into these types of situations, they look at what's not working, and then they kind of say, well, maybe that's just what it is, and they feel like they have to go through that same process, right?
Yeah. And I think it's also important that with technology these days, I mean, we can do this. I mean, we're doing this now with technology, that you find the right coach for you, not necessarily the closest. Because it's really important to gel with your coach, and you don't have to really like your coach, because you want that person to make you accountable and to make you work hard and to challenge you and everything else. I mean, it helps if they like you, it's great. But you want somebody who brings those skills to the table and that you can work with. You need to see if you're compatible to work with. And lots of coaches offer a free session to start with. And I recommend to people, try 2 or 3 coaches out to start with, before you decide on which one to work with. You know, find the best one for you. I offer up to 2 hours an actual coaching session, so people can understand how I work, and then I can see if I can work with that client, and they can see if they're happy to work with me. And we can decide at the end of that session then, you know, if we want to work together or not.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, because if you've got somebody investing in a 3, 6, or 9-month program, that's a long time for them, and it's a heavy investment if they, you know, you get the wrong coach. So I think it's really important that they have that initial upfront couple of hours to experience an actual coaching session with no obligation. I think that's so important.
Yeah, powerful. And that's the same thing I kind of my philosophy when it comes to actually hiring, because one of the things we also help our clients do, we help them hire. Most of our clients, when they do get up to a $30,000, $40,000 per month mark inside their businesses, now it becomes, okay, let's not keep doing everything yourself, but let's bring in more like actual team members to help you grow this, so you could focus on what you're good at. And I know that's one of the things I realized, especially when it comes to hiring people. The biggest mistake I realized is that they just pick the first person, right? They just see someone and they're like, I got a good feeling about this person. I'm just gonna hire them. But then when they find out is that it was a bad decision, because they hired the person maybe because just they liked them, but then when the results start showing up and the feedback, it's like it's not working. Now they kind of feel like compelled to say, well, let me try to help this person improve, and that type of stuff, versus just realize that no, you got the wrong person in the beginning. And it's always best to say, hey, try on a few different individuals. Don't just go with the first one, but try on a few, because what you'll find is out of the few, there's one that's gonna stick out a lot better than the others, and then make a decision to actually move forward and do the long-term thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's vital. Even just to get I mean, I have an assistant, and you know, it's essential just to get the right person. It really is. I mean, it's the making or breaking of your business sometimes.
Yeah.
And is that crucial?
Yeah. So what about books? Are you a big reader, listener? Do you listen to podcasts, interviews? How do you spend most
I
of your
listen
time?
to a lot of audiobooks, few podcasts, few selective podcasts. I'm just about to launch my own podcast as well, which is called Your Best Future. So yeah, busy times. Yeah.
Yeah. What's one book currently read any books that's really had a profound impact for you as you go on your journey as well?
Yeah, one book that I always sort of refer to, and I did a lot of martial arts when I was younger, and it's The Book of 5 Rings by Miyamoto Musashi.
The Book of 5 Rings.
Yeah, Book of 5 Rings. It's an ancient text which has been translated into numerous times, and you find Book of 5 Rings for executives, Book of 5 Rings for life. But if you get the Book of 5 Rings, it's geared to martial arts and Japanese samurai and weaponry, but you can adapt the philosophy to life, because the samurai were also artists, calligraphers, philosophers, etc., as well, and that was all part of their makeup. So when you read that, and you can apply it to everyday life, and gives quite a powerful message.
Yeah, awesome. Can you share an example? What is there anything that stands out, that sticks out to you?
Yes, they were about emptying the mind. I mean, every day these days you hear the buzzword mindfulness, which is fine. You know, it works. It's having a focus on, you know, going for a walk and listening to the birds, or looking at the flowers, or whatever you're doing, to be mindful, to be present in what you're doing. But the Japanese philosophy that of empty mind goes further and deeper than that. So that you find, maybe, I don't know, you're listening to the birds, but then go a little bit deeper. You don't only hear the birds, you hear the rustling of the trees. And you go a little bit deeper, you might hear the wind. And you go a little bit deep, and it's all about emptying completely and taking the time to do that.
Yeah.
And we can talk about meditation. A lot of people go for meditation these days. It's quite accepted, but some people still frown on it and think it's a bit hippie-fied. But when you start talking about going into a state of relaxation and then not interrupting that state of relaxation and then relaxing more, that becomes quite powerful then, because they didn't think there was anything more beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people do need to quieten the mind before they can move forward.
Yeah.
Not everybody does that. It's a very busy world.
Yeah, I love that. Now, what about, I got a couple more questions. In terms of habits wise, so what habit would you say you've developed that's really helped you create the level of success that you've created in your life and business?
Listen, listen, and listen again.
Mm-hmm.
It's key. It's key to everything. Everything we've just spoke about, it's key to all of that,
mm-hmm.
is the listening skills. And it's not just listening, it's being present when you're listening. And if we talk about active listening, it's going further than that. It really is giving your all to the person you're listening to. No distractions, no disturbances, and listening to every single word they say. And if you don't understand it, ask for clarification. And if there's pauses in there and things that are unsaid, they're as powerful as the things that are said, and that you can come back and you can explore those. But listening is the key. It's that skill.
Yeah, love it, love it. And what about, so we said habits. So what about a skill wise? What's one skill you'd say you've mastered? I guess listen could be considered a skill, but yeah, what's another one you got?
Another one.
Yeah, skill.
Dictation software.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's dictation software.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sight impaired. So I write with a microphone and speech to text software, and it's read back to me by text to speech software. So
Mm-hmm.
mastering that for me was essential.
Mm-hmm. You said you're sight impaired?
That's right.
So you can't see at all, or what's
Very limited vision. I have light and movement in the left eye, and I have a nice big iMac in front of me, and I can blow things up with the right eye. It's limited, very limited.
Oh goodness, I would have never guessed that. Mm-hmm.
Well, just one of those things.
Yeah. But yeah, dictation softwares. I've never gotten into it. Or I started to at least, but I never really got, I guess I'm more of like a typer in a sense, right? Okay, awesome. Love that. Okay, so if someone wanted to reach out, what would be the best way for them to connect?
You can go to my website, which is www.coachpaul.expert. It's coachpaul.expert.
Awesome. What about
and you
resources?
You can get me on Facebook as well, and I'm on there on Twitter.
Yeah. What about resources? Do you have any resources that you could share as well too?
Yeah, there are some resources on the website as well. One of the things people might be interested in is the Smart Plus, and that's a goal-setting formula, which has been developed over a number of years. It's an adaptation to the SMART model, and it has 3 extra elements in there which prove very successful with individuals.
Awesome. Love that, Paul. Well, hey, thank you so much for making the time to stop by the show today. Really appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts before we end?
Thanks for having me here. I'm happy to talk to anybody. If they want to just come and ask some questions, that's fine. If they want to book a discovery session, that's fine too.
Love that, Paul. Well, hey, thanks again, and we will be in touch, okay?
Okay, thanks very much.